The KRGS Doors Show, proudly brought to you by KRGS Doors. For all your shopfront roller shutters, roller grills, folding closures and bifold doors, visit www.krgsdoors.com.au. Welcome to the KRGS Doors podcast. I'm your host, Drew Blackman. The aim of our podcast is to talk to cool people with cool stories, whether it be our suppliers, customers, staff, other business owners, or people from different walks of life, and get to know them a bit better. If you're interested in coming on, drop us a line or email, or connect with us via Facebook, and we can have a chat to see what we can do. Today on episode 23 of the KRGS Doors podcast, I'm joined by KRGS Doors Managing Director Clayton Blackman and the Honorary Member for Blaxland, Mr. Jason Clare. Mr. Clare was elected to the House of Representatives in 2007. His roles have included Minister for Home Affairs, Minister for Justice and Cabinet Secretary. We talk how he got into politics and what he thinks of the current state of politics in Australia. I will also let you in on our next episode's guest. But for now, please welcome to the podcast, Mr. Jason Clare.
If this doesn't turn you on, folks, you haven't got a switch.
Thank you very much, Jason, for joining us on the podcast today. What is the Jason Clare story?
Well, it's a story of a boy who grew up in Western Sydney. You know, not uncommon for listeners. I grew up in Cabramatta in Western Sydney and went to Cabramatta Public School and Canley Vale High School. Grew up kicking a soccer ball around and doing little athletics and playing cricket, spending too much time in the sun, which probably explains some of the marks on my face. You know, like most kids in Western Sydney, you know, grew up loving sport, and I was the first kid in my family to finish high school.
Wow, it's an achievement.
Probably it's not too unusual either. You know, the old man finished school at the end of Year 9 and went off and became an apprentice. And Mum didn't go to high school at all. She got crook with rheumatic fever when she finished primary school, and by the time she got to high school, she was so far behind they decided to pull her out of school. So I was the first kid in the family to finish high school, went off to university and became a lawyer, and then disappointed the family and became a politician.
I'm sure not.
But, you know, I got, you know, when I was at school, I was always interested in history.
Yeah.
You know, studying, you know, the past, whether it was, you know, what's happened in the last few decades or what happened thousands of years ago. And all of those stories are often about people who made decisions or did things that either, you know, helped people or hurt people. And it sort of, there was a history teacher that said to me, politicians can, you know, really change people's lives for the better. And growing up in Cabramatta, it was, you know, it was a pretty rough old town back in the 80s with drugs and, you know, unemployment and all the problems that the community had. It was a big refugee town. You know, it had the $10 POMs or the £10 POMs back in the 70s. And then in the 80s, the Vietnamese refugees. So, you know, I grew up in a place where, you know, I thought, what if I could do something that could make it a better place? And being a politician is one of the ways to do that. So, you know, I'd never imagined I'd become the local MP, but that's what happened.
At what age, mate, did you look at politics? Like, was it when you were in primary school or high school that you thought that you'd like to go down that career?
Oh, when I was at primary school, I wanted to be a copper.
Yeah?
Yeah. The interesting thing, you know, like when I was at primary school, I wanted to be a police officer. And then when I was at high school, you know how you get to do work experience in Year 10? So I did work experience at Liverpool Hospital. I wanted to be a doctor. You got to work in all the different places in the hospital, including the morgue, which was a pretty interesting place to do work experience.
As an eye-opener?
Just a little, or an eye closer.
Yeah.
But, you know, when I got into Year 11, you get told, okay, these are the subjects you've got to do if you want to go and be a doctor. You've got to do physics and you've got to do chemistry. So I signed up with them. And then in the first class of physics in Year 11, the science teacher comes in and says, this is the hardest subject in the HSC and most of you are going to fail.
Wow.
And I thought, well, if I fail this, I'm not going to get the marks to become a doctor. So I dropped out.
That's a good confidence booster first up, isn't it, mate?
Yeah. Well, my mum worked at the high school that I went to. She was in the admin office. And so I drop out of physics, drop out of chemistry and sign up for other subjects. And the science teacher goes up to the admin office and says to my mum, why did Jason drop out of physics and chemistry? And she said, well, you told him he was going to fail.
Yeah.
And he said, well, I didn't mean him, I meant the others.
Oh,
right.
But that goes to show you how, something that someone says can change your life.
absolutely.
Because I changed subjects and said, okay, well, if I'm not going to be able to be a doctor, maybe I could be a lawyer. And put my head down, worked hard, got into law school, went off and finished law school.
So do you look
gone in a totally different direction?
Do you look back, Jay, and think that one day I wish I would have been a policeman or a doctor rather than a politician?
A lot.
Yeah.
Because often in my job you get to visit hospitals and you see the great work doctors do, and you think that could have been me. I could have been there doing that sort of work.
Yeah.
But I like to think, and I don't know that this is a terribly, I don't know if everyone will agree with this, but often I think, what do police do? What do doctors do? What do lawyers do? What do politicians do? At their best, those jobs are supposed to be about helping people.
Yeah.
And, I think most people probably say, well, police and doctors do a better job of that than politicians. But, my job should be, the job of politicians should be to help people. And so I get to do it in a different way.
How did you start in politics?
It goes back to being at school and learning about history and getting interested in politics there. But I never thought that I'd join a political party or, become a politician. Mum and Dad were always Labor voters, but never in the Labor Party. We talk around the kitchen table about what was happening in politics at the time. When I was a kid, it was, Bob Hawke was the Prime Minister. Everyone loved Hawkey, and the things that he was doing were things that I thought, politicians should do. I'm thinking back about setting up Medicare and those sorts of things. He was, my idol. You can see him behind.
Yes. See an autographed copy there behind you.
Yeah, I guess one of the privileges of doing a job like this is you get to meet your heroes, whoever they might be, and got to meet Bob lots of times, before he died, and sit down and have a chat with him. But when I was a kid, it was, he was the guy. And I remember after I left high school, I was at a local RSL having a drink, and I ran into an old mate that I'd been at school with, who I never thought was interested in politics that much, but he said that he'd joined the Labor Party, and he said you should come along to a meeting. Now, I don't think I would have ever picked up the phone or, gone along to a meeting if someone hadn't,
advised you about it.
Yeah. But I thought, well, maybe I should take advantage of that. So I went along to a meeting with him, and the rest is history. I ended up getting involved in the Labor Party and joining the Cabramatta branch of the party. And from there, got to meet people like Hawke and Neville Wran and, other people in the Labor Party, and, got more involved. So I guess, that's how it all happened.
So did you start at a state level, mate, or just looked at federal level straight away, like helping, joining them?
I started, I guess you start in your local community, helping out local people that are running for the local council. I worked for a little while for a bloke called John Newman. I don't know if you remember him.
Yes.
But
he was assassinated in Cabramatta.
Yeah, 1994. And so he'd come along to a Labor Party meeting at that same club, the Cabravale Diggers Club, that I met that mate, and he told me to, why don't I come along to the Labor Party? I was with him at that meeting that night before he died.
Wow.
He came along to the meeting, gave a report about what he was doing about crime and drugs in the local community, and then jumped in the car. I remember waving goodbye to him in the car park, and he went home. I went home. I think my dad picked me up from the club. I was sitting at home doing a uni assignment, and then someone, I think it was my mum or dad, rushed into the room and said a politician's been shot. It was on the news at about 9 o'clock or 9:30 that night.
That would have been an eye-opener, mate.
Yeah, didn't sleep very much that night. I remember jumping in the car and driving over there. There were police everywhere around the house.
So you were one of his employees? You work for him?
Well, I was in the local party. I worked for him probably for about 3 months between the end of uni and the start of uni.
Yeah.
I was working at Sizzler at the time, washing dishes there. But did a little
The
bit
great
of work.
the great cheese bread there, mate. Eh?
No more
This is the
Sizzler?
great tragedy of 2020. All the Sizzlers are shut.
It's just add it to the list of that 2020.
Get the gamble down and get a last feed of Sizzler this month before it shuts down.
It's outrageous, mate. That's gone.
But yeah, so, I remember as a young person, all of that happening, which was, very terrifying.
What, you would have been about 22, 23, mate, at that age?
Yeah, that's right.
Wow.
Yeah, that's right.
So you would have possibly been one of the last people to see him alive
Yeah,
at that time.
that's right. Yeah, that's right. He went home and he was with his partner living in Cabramatta West. They were putting a car cover over his car because the car had been paint bombed before. While he was putting the cover on the car, he got shot. And so I had to give evidence at the trial that took place into all of that, just to be able to say where he was before he went home and got shot.
Wow.
But when somebody gets savagely murdered like that, it affects you for life.
Absolutely does.
Did that have questions over you continuing in the party, or was it something that drove you to say, hey, I want to continue in this fashion?
Oh, it terrified me. You do these jobs because you want to make a difference, you want to help people, but you don't want to lose your life, and that's what happened to John. He was a tough bloke that made plenty of enemies, but never in his wildest dreams, I imagine, did he expect that some crime gang was going to pay him back by killing him in his
taking his life. Yeah, you don't put your hand up to go into that role for that sort of payback.
And you see it happen in America. Thank God, not so often nowadays, but you've seen presidents who've been assassinated. But fortunately in Australia, that's a rarity.
Yeah.
But when you're that close to it, it scared the hell out of me.
It's close to home, mate. Close to home.
As you said earlier, or the job, what you're trying to do is just help people and make the world a better place. And all of a sudden, and he was probably trying to do the same thing. And all of a sudden that's happened, and you go, hey, he's just doing his job.
Yeah, that's exactly right. That's just one story of a politician, but stories like that happen to people in their own walks of life every day.
Yeah.
You can be driving home, picking up the kids from childcare, and a car goes through a red light, and you can find yourself in hospital, or you've got a pain in your side. You go to the doctor and you find out that you've got something serious that you've got to deal with. Life can sideswipe you at any time.
For sure.
It certainly can. Mate, what are the biggest challenges you face in your role?
The thing that makes this job challenging, I think, is a lot of people will come into my office and think because I'm the local member of parliament, I can make decisions that will help them on the spot. They've got a problem with their pension, or they've got a problem with the Department of Immigration, and they think that in other countries you go to the local member of parliament and they can just make a phone call and things get fixed. It doesn't work like that in Australia. As a member of parliament, you can lobby, and you can make speeches in parliament. You can get on the phone to ministers and try and urge them to reverse decisions where you think they've made a mistake, but you can't. You've got no way of directing that. And so we spend a lot of time, myself and my staff, doing, I guess, working hard to try and give people justice.
Yeah.
So, I'll give you an example. We're dealing with a case in the office at the moment where there's a fellow named Frank who lives at Chester Hill. He's got 3 boys, and one of the boys has a disability called Angelman syndrome, which means that he grows up bigger and bigger every year, but he stays like a boy in a
Yeah.
in a 2-year-old boy in an adult's body. He can't speak, has trouble moving around, has seizures, wakes up 4 times during the night. There's no cure for it. Massive challenge for Frankie's dad, looking after little Jacob, not so little anymore. And made more difficult 2 years ago when Frank's wife died from a brain tumour. So he's looking after Jacob, who's got Angelman syndrome, and the other 2 boys on his own. The National Disability Scheme's there to help, provides the support for a carer to come in and give him a bit of time off to support him. Yeah, Jacob goes to George Bass, the school for kids with disabilities over at George Hall. But and so that gives Frank time to do 2 jobs in the local area. He does lawn mowing and he's got a pest control business. But the NDIS is not providing the support he needs on the weekends or on Friday nights.
Yeah.
They cut his funding by 50% last month. So I'm trying to get it reversed.
He's coming to you to try and get support to help him.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And, I can't just pick up the phone and say, the government reverse this as much as I'd like to. But you've got to, you've got to try and fight the system. You've got to make speeches in Parliament, write letters, get media attention, try and, make a case.
Yeah, point it in the right direction.
So, and in this job, you see people that are really, under pressure, doing it tough, that the system's not treating fairly. When that happens, you've got to fight as hard as you can. Hopefully we'll get a good result.
Fingers crossed. Jason, how long have you been in politics now?
13 years this month. Didn't have this grey hair when I started.
None of us did, mate. None of us did.
No, I know. It seems to have gone quickly too. I got elected back in 2007 when Rudd became the PM. Rudd came in a landslide.
Kevin 07.
November 2007. Kevin 07. That's 13 years ago.
Wow.
So, and look, lots happened in federal politics in that time. You had the global financial crisis, and now we've got another one bigger than that, COVID.
And we've had a few prime ministers since then too, mate.
Yeah, we've had Rudd, Gillard, Rudd, Abbott, Turnbull, Morrison.
Yeah.
So that's 6 in the same period of time that we had one with Howard.
Correct.
It's quite interesting seeing that, because even like before Howard, it didn't change too often like it has recently. What do you feel that's to, that the parties aren't doing a good job, or people are more so aware of what's happening in their own backyard?
It's a good question. Strong leaders get loyalty, and leaders like Hawke and Keating and Howard were strong leaders that had strong support, even in times where they weren't up in the polls. You didn't have people knocking on the door saying it's time for a change.
Yeah, agree.
I think in the Labor Party and in the Liberal Party in the last few years, you've had a lot of people who thought they'd be better at the top job than somebody else, and so whenever there was an opportunity, there was a challenge. You saw that with Turnbull challenging Abbott. They never got on, so when Abbott was down in the polls, he challenged. Yeah. And then when Turnbull was down in the polls, a lot of people never liked him, so they decided to challenge him as well. Both the parties, Labor and Liberal, the major parties, have changed their rules to make it more difficult to swap leaders midstream. So I don't think we're going to see as much of that in the future, the next 10 years as we've seen in the last 10 years.
Okay.
But just both parties, I think, recognise now that the Australian public don't like that.
They want stability.
They want stability. They don't like the idea that, you vote for one person and then there's another person put in.
Yeah, correct.
That could still happen, but I think the rules in both parties mean that we're in for a longer period of one person running each party than we've had in the past.
Excellent.
Hey guys, sorry to interrupt the podcast. We have a word from our sponsor. KRGS Doors Security Mobile Trellis Barrier allows you to have a versatile trackless barrier at any length. Standing 2 metres in height and having no floor or head tracks eliminates any trip hazards or the need for bulkheads. Simply wheel the security mobile trellis barrier away when not needed. perfectly suited when you need to prevent access to a certain section of the property, such as food courts or when parts of the shopping centre are closed. If you'd like more information, visit www.krgsdoors.com.au or call 1800 897 822. Now back to the podcast.
You mentioned before that you're fighting all these little battles that are in your area, and your next door neighbour, he's fighting the same thing. How do you balance politics and personal life?
I'm lucky in the sense that I live in Sydney. So, the pollies that fly into Canberra from the Northern Territory or Western Australia, they will spend sometimes weeks and weeks away from their family. And I don't know how they do that because, anybody listening who, if you go away for work, the thing that's hardest about that is being away from the kids and being away from your husband or your wife. And for those pollies that are coming from a long way away, that means they're away for a long time. The Victorian politicians who've been in the lockdown, they had to fly into Canberra and spend 2 weeks in quarantine and then stay up there. So some of them have been up in Canberra away from their kids for months.
Months, yeah.
It's a lot easier. New South Wales, we've done better with the crisis, but generally, I can jump in the car on a Monday morning, get down to Canberra, and then I'm home by late Thursday night. The answer to your question is how do you make sure that you don't neglect your family?
Yeah,
it's a sort of job that never ends. And lots of jobs are like this now. You take work home with you because the bloody phone never stops ringing, or you've always got emails that you've got to respond to. So you got to be disciplined about it and make sure that when you're home, you're really home and that you're focused on the family. And this is the sort of job where you can be away from home a lot. And so you got to make sure that you do your job properly when you're at work and focused on the family when you're not.
How, just on average, how often or how many days a year would you spend in Canberra compared to being in Sydney?
Look, this is a good one because when I talk to kids in primary schools, they'll often assume I live in Canberra.
Yeah,
they think all the politicians
are down there.
Yeah, which is not the way it works. You live in your local area and you go down there when Parliament's on. Parliament's on about 20 weeks a year. So I'm probably down there, 90 or 100 days a year.
Okay.
So, what's that, between a third and a quarter of the year, I'm down there. And then the rest of the time I'm in Bankstown or Auburn, which is my local. Yeah. So, it's a fair chunk of time. But if you're the Prime Minister or if you're, the Treasurer or one of the ministers, you're probably down there. Well, the Prime Minister probably spends about 3/4 of his time down there, but the other ministers probably spend half their time. Often people will think, the only work you do is in Canberra.
Yeah, sure.
It's sort of like two different jobs. Because when you're in Canberra, you're in your office all the time. The bells are ringing and you've got to go from your office into the Parliament to vote. You're writing speeches, you're doing media interviews, you're sort of part of the big team. If you're in the government or the opposition, you're going to lots of meetings with lots of people and you're making decisions about whether you're going to vote yes or no for different things. And then when I'm back here, it's more like you're on your own. I've got a couple of staff here. People come in the door or ring on the phone and they need help with individual things. Or you get to jump in your car and go out and visit different things that are happening in the local community. So, for example, today I was over at Bankstown Airport because the police have just built a new hangar for the helicopters and the planes that operate out of there. So I was over there with the police commissioner looking at that.
You mentioned you've been in Parliament for 13 years now. What do you put your success down to?
I talked before about growing up in Cabramatta and, I consider myself really lucky as a kid because, I grew up with a mum and a dad and a mum and a dad who both had a job. I was surrounded by kids who, were refugees coming from Southeast Asia, Vietnam, Cambodia, South America, Uruguay, Chile, kids that either, didn't have both parents or didn't have both parents living at home. when we'd go on school excursions, half the class wouldn't come along because they didn't have the money to pay for the school excursion. So, even though it was a sort of a tough place, a working class place, I felt very fortunate as a kid that, I was loved and well looked after and didn't want for anything. And, my parents pushed me. They didn't finish school, but they said, do your homework, make sure that you try your best, and encouraged me. They said to me, the harder you work, the luckier you'll get. And, I've tried to adopt that approach in everything I do. I don't think I'm the sort of person that's naturally good at anything. I just, if I work hard and try and be good at it, Clay knows this through cricket, I'm not the flashiest cricketer in the world, but I used to train hard and try and make sure that I was half decent at it.
You're not the best lawn bowler either, mate, be honest.
No, this is true too. But I don't have a lot of practice in lawn bowling. Maybe
no. I will
get a bit better at it.
I will make everyone aware that Jason and I are good mates, and we do mix socially. We do get together with a heap of other mates of ours, and we have a day at Lawn Bowls, which once a year, just before Christmas, which we all love, Clay Day. But we don't get to catch up.
Maybe my balance is off. You've got to have a beer in your hand when you're bowling.
That could be the key. We get a schooner at each end.
I believe I've heard that Lawn Bowls is the winner on the day.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Lawn Bowls gets a brief crack, but we spend most of our time sitting around just having a few drinks,
just taking the piss out of each other.
We do have a game of darts as well.
Yes, we do. We do a bit of a triathlon there with the lawn bowls and the darts.
Is it true, though, that you are renowned to actually closing down those bowling clubs? Because you've had a few venues over the years that have no longer around.
No fault of our own, but we have been known to close a couple of wherever we've gone, wherever we've taken that function, we have been known to close a bowling club. But I think the one we're at now, I think they're going to be there for a while. So I know they look forward to having us there every year.
Well, this, if we're going to be totally honest, it wasn't always lawn bowls.
No.
It used to be golf. But some of us got so lazy that we couldn't be bothered walking around 18 holes.
Yeah. Golf became a bit too much, so it just was better. Lawn bowls is more our speed, I think.
So, and now even lawn bowls is suffering because it's too far to walk down the other end, and you're just doing darts, which is about 5 foot from the board.
Yeah, that's right. And, tap and pay for the meat raffle. So.
Well, some days on the lawn bowls, like we've had days and it's been 500 degrees and not even interested in venturing outside there to throw a ball down. Just stay inside in the shade and let's keep hydrated.
But we catch up on the Sunday before Christmas, and we're all mates who used to play cricket together.
Yeah,
and as you get older and we're not playing sport every weekend, and you're busy with your job or you're busy with family, you can find that a year will pass and you won't see your mates. So it's great to be able to just make sure that there's a day every year
we can catch up.
That our partners know we're going to be busy. We're with our mates. We catch up. We tell a few stories about what's happened in the last year, but usually we just retell the same stories.
That's true. That is true. They just get longer.
Of how good you were at cricket and that type of thing.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly right.
Exactly.
We've got a mate of ours who I won't name, but some people call him Brett, who would always tell the story about when he was at the Olympic Games.
Oh yes, that's the best.
And
hope you're doing well too, Wyber.
Well, Brett was a volunteer at the Olympic Games, but the way he tells it, he was a competitor.
When he was at the Olympics?
There's nothing wrong with that. I watched the 100-metre final, and I tell my kids I went to the Olympics.
When I was at the 2000 Olympics. Hang on a minute.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Yeah, I was a volunteer. Well, we've never let that one go.
There's nothing wrong with that. Away from work, how do you relax?
I don't know if it's relaxing, but it's being a dad. I became a dad a bit older than a lot of other people, I guess. At the age of 44, got a little fella who had his 4th birthday the other day. And, the bigger he gets, the faster he gets. And it's just having fun with him, watching him grow up. Lego's the latest thing that he's obsessed about. But he's decided at the moment that he thinks he's a ninja. So every night he puts on a show to the theme song from Ninjago, the Lego cartoon.
Yes.
So, that's the sort. You don't get focused on work when you've got a free show on every night.
Drew's little fella's 4, isn't he?
He's 4, yes. Lego is a big thing. It's amazing how quick they can learn stuff. Like I've got 2 older, 18 and 15, and then Nate's 4. But yeah, there's just how quick they can learn. You seem to forget.
They're like a sponge at that age.
Yeah, well, look, that's it's between 0 and 5 that kids learn so much, which is why they say that childcare is so important. I think back when we were kids, I don't know about you guys, but I didn't, first time I was in a classroom was when I went to kindergarten.
Yeah.
Have childcare. But, lots of kids get it. Most kids get to go to childcare now, and it's not childcare. It's not,
they're learning.
In the corner and getting to play with the ball. I get photos, in the middle of the day telling me what he's up to, and he's learning the alphabet and learning, planets and all the sort of stuff that you'd normally, I think I learned in kindergarten. You already, it's already up there by the time you get there.
He might be a doctor, mate.
Well, you never know. He wants to be Fireman Sam at the moment. He reckons, so
that's good.
But there you go. There's another career where your job is to help people.
We had a couple of episodes ago. We had Maxie from Bondi Rescue.
Okay.
He was on a couple of episodes ago, and he's a fiery. He's also got. He said he's got the 2 best jobs in the world. One's a fiery, and one's working at Bondi Beach. He's telling some good stories about what he's doing, mate. He's a young bloke, and he's kicking goals.
Well, that's the sort of job where you hope you're not busy, because if you're called out to do something, it's because someone's in strife.
Yeah, it's a drama.
Now, to finish up the podcast, Jason, we ask our fast 5 questions, and they're just a bit rapid fire, just to get to know you a little bit better. What would be your...
Politicians aren't good at yes/no answers.
No, that's fine. They're not yes/no, and we will grill you if need be.
If they're not up to standard, yeah, we will. That's right.
Okay. Right.
What would be your last meal?
Oh, well, that's an easy one. Mum's meatloaf.
There you go.
It's a staple in the...
Special secret sauce. I can't give you the recipe.
11 secret herbs and spices or something in it, mate, is there?
No, Mum's meatloaf's right up there. She made that for me as a kid every birthday. And so it's the one thing I say to Mum, look, can you just make the meatloaf for me every birthday with the special sauce? I won't give you the full ingredients, but it's got coffee in it. Which,
you're easily pleased, mate.
Well, maybe add in a bit of potato bake as well.
Ah, beautiful.
What's your drink of choice?
What's your favourite meal, mate?
Oysters Kilpatrick, mate.
Oh, okay, very nice. And Drew?
Oh, probably chocolate. I don't know if that's a meal. Or maybe lasagna. You can't go past a good lasagna. So, but yeah, nothing too extravagant. We've had a couple of answers on here. I've never heard of some of the food that they've. Maybe I've lived a sheltered life or something. But some of the answers we've had in the past.
Duck à l'orange and all that.
Yeah,
sort of, yeah.
Okay.
So,
meatloaf, mate. Yeah, that's it. That's good.
What's your drink of choice?
You want alcohol or non-alcohol?
Either or both.
Okay, well, coffee and bourbon and Coke, not mixed together.
Coffee with a bourbon.
Bought a beer actually from. I was at the bottle shop last year, and there was a beer that you could buy that had coffee in it, and I thought this is a great combination. And I had one sip, and it tasted great. And then I had another sip, and I couldn't drink the rest of it. So,
I was going to say, kept you up all night.
Yeah, or even you out, because beer can knock you out. But yeah, don't mix beer with coffee. They're good drunk separately. The bourbon and Coke, I'll say. Bourbon and Coke.
And just on that, how do you have your coffee?
Okay. No milk. Just give me just a shot of coffee. I get like a double espresso, so supercharged.
Excellent.
You drink that with a knife and fork.
Yeah, well, it's keep you awake. Put it that way.
Absolutely.
Don't drink it after lunch.
Your favourite holiday destination?
I reckon the States.
Yeah.
The USA. I've been there quite a bit. It's it's a great place to, it's got things that we have, in Australia that are familiar, but also they do things pretty differently over there as well.
They certainly do.
Great sport, great shows, good shopping, good fun.
Any particular one place in the States, Jay?
I reckon New York.
Yep.
It's a long way to go, but it's a lot of fun when you get there.
Yeah, good.
You remember as a kid, mate, watching all of those Christmas specials,
yes.
Where it's snowing and, Santa Claus going to arrive. And, a lot of those are set in New York. And so as a kid growing up, I thought this is a bit of a fantasy land. But it's also, probably the heart of, the biggest economy in the world. The heart of it's in New York. So it's an exciting place to visit.
The city that never sleeps.
Yeah.
So Canberra doesn't rate up there, or is it, where's that on the list? Middle of winter in Canberra, something like that?
One of the saving graces is that Canberra, they don't have Parliament in July. Canberra gets bloody cold. It gets colder than Tasmania.
Yeah.
There was this, I don't know whether it's right or not, but when they were trying to work out where Parliament was going to be 100 years ago or over 100 years ago, they were trying to have a debate that, it had to be more than 300 kilometres away from Sydney under the rules. And but it could have been anywhere, and they were trying to find different locations. And people were saying that colder climates produce more industrious people, people who work harder if it's cold. Well, if that's the case, they couldn't have picked a much colder place than Canberra. I don't know how industrious we are, how productive we are, but it's bloody cold.
Yeah, absolutely.
Do you think when they decided that, like 100-odd years ago, and then about the 10th of July come around, they all had a vote and went, we're no longer holding Parliament in July. All those in favour? Aye. And there was none against, and it was done there and then on that day.
Lock it in.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised. Yes. I wouldn't be surprised. They do. One of the things that I didn't appreciate until I became a dad, and my little boy isn't at school yet, but you'll never find Parliament sitting on school holidays. And so they've worked out that if Parliament is on and the kids are at home, then it's it makes it harder for your partner, but also it's a missed opportunity for you to spend a little bit more
time with your family.
Yeah, so, when you look at why isn't Parliament on this week, if school holidays are on, it's probably not on.
Mate, who is the most famous person's phone number you have in your phone?
Well, I guess it depends on your definition of famous. The PM's in there, but maybe more famous than the PM is Koshi from Sunrise.
Oh,
so
yeah.
I'll throw that one in there. Koshi.
Yeah, that's good.
That is up there.
We haven't had that one.
No. I've got the cash cow.
You got cash cow,
I've got the cash cow. Yeah. Okay.
Well, Clay, you just need Samantha.
Well, she lives down near me, so I guess that counts. I guess
she's a neighbour of yours.
She is a neighbour. She's only a couple of suburbs away from me.
There you go. We've got it, mate.
And finally, if heaven does exist, what would God say when you arrive at the pearly gates?
Well, hopefully you'll say, what took you so bloody long?
A few more years yet, mate.
I had a run-in with melanoma last year.
Yes.
I got lucky. I saw a mole on my leg and I thought it had changed colour and went to the doctor and they chopped it off and then rang back and said, yeah, it's cancer. But got lucky, got it out early. But, those things will kill you if they stay there and grow on your body for a long time.
Yeah.
So, that sort of reminded me, how fragile life is. And, as we all get older, you've got to look after yourself, and blokes 100%. Are pretty awful at going to the doctor. So if you're still listening, my hot tip is go and get a skin check.
It's good, mate. And obviously some of the work you've done with some of those causes, you're leading them in the right direction. So it's good to see that you've bounced back from that, and hope that so many people take advice and go and do the same.
Yeah, I've had a couple of mates who, over the course of the last year have said, you've reminded me I should go and get a checkup. And it was actually another politician. We were at an event and he dragged me aside and he started unbuttoning his shirt, and I thought, what's going
on here?
And he pulled it open. He had stitches down his chest. He said, melanoma, thanks, mate. So,
Wow.
Sometimes it's just hearing,
Yes.
a couple of blokes talking about it like this, or, seeing a story about it on Sunrise or the Today Show or whatever. And you think, oh, yeah, or your wife hears it, your girlfriend hears it and says you should just go and check it out. And it might be something that you never even imagined could be a skin cancer, and doctors find it, chop it out, save your life.
Yeah, no, it's good.
For sure.
Mate, I really appreciate, I know you're a busy man there in Federal Parliament. I really appreciate your time, and I know it's taken a little while for us to get together, but you and your staff, thanks very much. Mate, like I said, we're just a little small business, and for you to come on and give your time to us, I really appreciate it. Thanks very much.
Thanks, mate. No, it's been great to be on. So thank you, Clay and Drew. I had a ball. I hope people enjoyed the chat.
Thanks very much, mate. All the best. Take care.
Thanks, Jason.
Thanks,
Cheers,
guys.
mate. That wraps up the 23rd episode and our chat with honorary member Jason Clare. You can find out more about Jason's great work by visiting his website, www.jasonclare.com.au. If you have missed any previous episodes of the KRGS Doors podcast, you can download them from the website, www.krgsdoors.com.au/podcast, or on your favourite podcast player, search KRGS Doors. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button to ensure you don't miss any future episodes. This also boosts our ranking and my ego. The other thing I suggest, if you have enjoyed the podcast, visit your favourite podcast player and leave a review or a rating. On our next episode, we speak to Brett Warden, Managing Director of Ostron Services. Established over 17 years ago, Ostron aimed to provide quality services to the Australian market. Brett gives us an insight into his working life, along with the challenges he faces as a leading manager. I've been your host, Drew Blackman, and you've been fantastic for tuning in today. As always, you could be anywhere in the world, but you're here with us. Thanks. Till next time. The KRGS Doors Show, proudly brought to you by KRGS Doors. For all your shopfront roller shutters, roller grills, folding closures and bifold doors, visit www.krgsdoors.com.au.